say that trains at night don't just carry people. Sometimes they drag things that don't belong in this world. Some passengers get off at their stop, others are never seen again, and there are those who swear that certain stares can never be forgotten. It was nearly 11:20 p.m. when I walked out of the design studio where I work, located in downtown Omaha. I was so exhausted I could barely think straight. All I wanted was to make it back to my apartment in the Elmwood neighborhood, crash on my mattress, and shut the world off. Like always, I hopped on the purple subway line heading north. That late-night routine had become a fixed part of my life for months now. The Liberty Grove station was nearly empty, just a few people scattered around with tired or blank expressions. I sat in the last car, in one of the back seats near the window. I popped in my earbuds, no music, just to avoid any small talk. I opened my phone and started scrolling through the screen, pretending to care about what I was seeing. At that hour, everything feels heavier, slower, like time drags itself along. The train stopped at the next station, and among the few passengers who boarded, one immediately set me on edge. A man around 40, thin, dark-skinned, wearing a dirty grey jacket and faded jeans. It wasn't his clothes or looks that stood out, it was how he watched me. Even though the car was practically empty, he came straight toward me and sat right beside me. At first, I tried to brush it off. I figured maybe he just didn't understand personal space. But a quick glance out of the corner of my eye told me he was staring at me, unblinking, his eyes wide open, locked on me like he knew me. A chill ran down my spine. I took a deep breath, adjusted myself in the seat, tried to act like I hadn't noticed anything, but I couldn't stop my body from tensing up. That gaze felt like it pierced right through me. He didn't move, he didn't speak. He just watched me with a terrifying stillness. I didn't know it then, but that night was about to flip my world upside down. And if you love scary stories, subscribe and hit the bell, because what you're about to hear isn't just another tale. Just when I thought I could handle sitting next to him without losing it, the man finally spoke. But what he said made absolutely no sense. "Got a light?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, like he didn't want anyone else to hear. "I don't smoke, never have." So I just shook my head slightly without looking up, but he didn't stop staring. I could feel his gaze drilling into the side of my head like a hot needle. I thought that would be enough for him to give up, but it wasn't. "Are you sure?" he pressed with a crooked grin that made me clutch my phone tighter. "Check your pockets. You must have something." That's when the fear crept in. Why was this guy so certain I had something I clearly didn't? His insistence made no sense. He didn't even seem interested in smoking. He seemed interested in me. I glanced at him again. He hadn't moved an inch, but his body looked tense, like he was holding back from doing something. That unnatural stillness reminded me of a wild animal waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes didn't blink. They were too wide, too dry. Looking closer, something about them felt disturbingly wrong. They were hollow, eyes that didn't seem human. I pressed my lips together and decided to ignore him completely. I looked back at my phone, though I couldn't focus on a single thing. Every part of my being was screaming at me to get off that train, but my stop was still 2 stations away. I took a deep breath and tried to hang on. I wanted to believe this was just an unfortunate coincidence. Maybe 2 minutes passed, no more, and he was still there, staring, unmoving, like a wax figure brought to life just to torment me. "Stop pretending," he whispered suddenly, leaning closer to my face. "I know you remember me. Don't act like you weren't there." I froze. "Excuse me," I managed to say, though my throat was nearly shut tight. "Don't play dumb, Marcus. You've lived this before. Or did you think you could run forever? My name's not Marcus. Never was. I'm Tyler." But what truly froze my blood was the other thing he said. "You've lived this before." That line made no sense. It was like he mistook me for someone else. Or worse, like he knew something I didn't. That's when it hit me. This man wasn't here by chance. He was waiting for me. The train began to slow down. The next station was coming up. I stood up, ready to get off, but he stood too and grabbed my arm with inhuman strength. His hand was bony, but shockingly strong. He yanked me toward him with such force I nearly fell. I felt his fingers dig into my arm like they were trying to pierce through. He stared into my eyes and whispered something I could barely hear over the screeching brakes. "Don't run again, Marcus. This time, you won't get away so easily." My name. Again. That cursed name that wasn't mine. I pushed back with everything I had, shoving him away, and seized the moment the doors opened. I bolted out of the train like death was on my heels. I didn't look back. My legs moved on their own, fueled by pure primal fear. I scrambled up the station stairs, almost slipping, my breath coming in ragged gasps. When I finally reached the street, the city was dead silent. A light fog clung to the sidewalks, and the wind blew cold, like the night itself had shifted suddenly. I started walking fast, senses on full alert. Every shadow felt threatening, every footstep of my own echoed like someone was tailing me. I tried not to turn around, but I couldn't help it. I glanced back multiple times. Nothing, not a soul, just flickering street lamps, parked cars, and the echo of my panic. But then I felt it, that buzzing at the base of my skull, that unshakable feeling we've all had at least once. Someone was following me. I quickened my pace, and the footsteps behind me did the same. I looked again. Nothing. I started running. No thoughts, just instinct. I didn't know if my mind was playing tricks or if someone really was there, but I didn't care to find out. I sprinted for 6 blocks until I reached my building's gate. My hands were trembling as I fumbled for my keys. I dropped them twice before finally managing to open the gate. I rushed in, slammed the door shut, took the stairs 2 at a time until I hit the 3rd floor, shoved the key into the lock of my apartment, slammed the door, locked all 3 bolts. I collapsed on the couch, my heart pounding out of control, my throat dry as dust. I didn't know if I wanted to laugh, cry, or scream. What the hell had just happened? Who was that guy? Why did he act like he knew me? And why did he call me by a name that wasn't mine? As I tried and failed to calm down, one terrifying thought hit me like a punch. If he knew my name, if he recognized my face, then he could also know where I live. And at that moment, the fear changed shape. It wasn't fear of what had happened. It was fear of what still could. I don't know how long I sat frozen on that couch. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 30. Time didn't feel real anymore. All I could hear was my rapid breathing, the faint ticking of an old kitchen clock, and that sharp ringing in the ears that comes when the silence gets too thick. I got up to get a glass of water. My mouth was parched, my legs were trembling, and my palms wouldn't stop sweating. I walked into the kitchen and, as I gulped the water shakily, I heard something. A faint sound, barely noticeable, like someone fiddling with the front door lock. I dropped the glass, and it shattered across the floor into sharp pieces. Barefoot and trying to stay silent, I crept toward the front door. I leaned in close to the peephole, and there he was, the same man from the subway, same filthy gray jacket, same lifeless eyes, but now holding a metal object, slipping it into the lock like he knew exactly how to open it. He wasn't guessing. He'd done this before. My entire body froze. Fear locked me in place for a second, then instinct kicked in. I sprinted to the bathroom, slammed the door shut, and twisted the lock. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. My fingers barely worked. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man. He's trying to break into my apartment. He followed me from the subway. Please, send someone fast. Stay calm. We're dispatching a unit now. Are you in a safe place? Yes, I locked myself in the bathroom, but I can hear him outside. He's trying to get in. The operator told me not to hang up, but I could barely focus. The man started knocking on the bathroom door, soft at first, then harder, testing its strength. Open up, he said. I know you're in there, Marcus. You can't hide forever. His voice seeped through the door, deep, coarse, like it came from a pit underground. The knocks turned into pounding fists, then kicks. The wood creaked under the pressure. I was crying and didn't even notice. Trapped, alone. I don't know how long it lasted. Minutes that felt like hours, but then I heard something else. Sirens. The footsteps outside the door stopped abruptly. Complete silence. Then I heard rapid, panicked breathing retreating, a sprinting escape, and the front door slamming shut. He had vanished. Soon after, the police arrived. I told them everything. They searched the building, but found nothing. One of them said it was likely just a junkie looking for cash or valuables. They advised me to replace my locks and stay vigilant for a while, but I knew he wasn't a thief. That man didn't want to rob me. He wanted to find me. Tap the yellow lamp icon and stay with us so we can uncover these deeply disturbing mysteries together. Once the officers left, the apartment went quiet again. I had new locks installed that very night with their help. Still, peace never returned. It felt like that man had left something behind, an invisible imprint inside my home. A presence you couldn't see or touch, but could feel, always there. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I sat in the corner of my room with a kitchen knife in my hand, my back against the wall, ears straining at every creak, every shadow that flickered past the window. The silence was thick, and as the city began to stir with the first hints of morning, my entire body trembled. I kept telling myself I was safe. The police had come. They had scared him off. But those reassurances did nothing, because one question wouldn't let me go. How did he know where I lived? I'd never seen him before, didn't know him, never crossed paths with him, yet he called me by a name that wasn't mine, spoke to me like we had some kind of shared past, and walked right up to my door like he already knew the address. That didn't feel random. It felt planned, calculated, deliberate. The next day, I visited a locksmith named Mr. Allen, an old man from the East Ridge neighborhood known for keeping things discreet. He replaced the entire locking system and handed me new keys. I told him in vague terms what had happened. After I finished, he paused for a moment and then said something that chilled me to my core. "Kid, what happened to you isn't normal. I'm not saying it's ghosts or anything, but when someone follows you that precisely, without even knowing you, there's more to it. You've been marked." Marked. That word dug into my brain like a splinter. I didn't know exactly what it meant. Marked how? By who? For what? But deep inside, something clicked. It was like that word explained everything I'd been feeling since I first saw that man. Like I'd been chosen by something or someone. That night I tried to sleep again. I shut the blinds, wedged a chair under the door handle, even left the TV on just to feel less alone. But none of it worked. Because the problem wasn't the man anymore. The problem was what had awakened inside me since his appearance. And the worst part was that it didn't feel over. I tried to go on with my life. I really did. Went to work like usual. Greeted my co-workers with fake smiles. Even forced myself to crack jokes so they wouldn't notice how wrecked I was. But inside, I was falling apart. I couldn't focus. Every shadow in the office looked like someone standing there. Every phone notification made me jump. But the nights were the worst. No matter how hard I tried, I always woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m., not 3:16, not 3:18, always the same time. Like my body knew something my mind refused to understand. I started wondering if there was a logical explanation for all this. I combed through local forums, old blogs, anything I could find. And that's when I came across something that sent chills through me. In an obscure thread on a message board about urban legends in Omaha, someone had written about strange occurrences on the Purple subway line, specifically in the tunnels between Liberty Grove and Hopewell stations. The post claimed that during the 1940s, when the city's first underground passages were being built, there had been a collapse. Dozens of workers were trapped underground. They were never rescued. The city sealed the site and never spoke of it again. The thread was filled with wild theories. Some claimed to hear voices in empty stations. Others swore they'd seen hooded figures in abandoned tunnels. No one seemed to take it seriously. But one message in particular left me speechless. Whoever hears their name in the tunnels has already been chosen. At 3:17, they'll come for him. No author, no context, just that. I read it over and over again. My stomach twisted. The worst part was remembering what I'd been trying to forget, that man in the subway had called me by a name that wasn't mine. Marcus. And while I kept telling myself it was just a coincidence, a part of me began to doubt. What if it wasn't just a mistake? What if that name had a purpose? I stopped riding the subway. I started biking to work, even if it meant waking up 2 hours earlier or pedaling home through cold rain. Still, I didn't feel safe, because down every street I rode, past every window I passed, I felt eyes watching me. And it wasn't just paranoia, it was something more. Like ever since that night, something ancient had taken notice of me. And every night, when the clock struck 3:17, the silence broke. Sometimes with a whisper, sometimes with a low, guttural laugh. Days went by, and even though I tried to resist, something inside me needed answers. I couldn't keep living with this feeling that I was a pawn in a game I didn't understand. So, against every instinct I had, I went back to where it all started, the subway. That Sunday, early in the morning, I mustered the courage, bundled up, and walked to Liberty Grove Station. In daylight, everything looked normal. Families, workers, kids with backpacks, an everyday scene. But inside me, a tight knot formed in my chest. When the train arrived, I stepped in cautiously, choosing a middle car this time. I tried not to overthink it, but something felt off. We passed 2 stations, and then the train stopped at a place that wasn't on the map. I looked at the digital sign, blank. The station name on the wall was faded, unreadable. Outside, everything looked abandoned. Cracked walls, flickering lights, thick mist seeping through the tunnels. No announcements, no sounds. No one else got off, just me. I felt pulled toward it, like something was calling me. I stepped out of the train without thinking too much. The doors stayed open for a few seconds, then shut behind me. The train left, and I was alone. Dust blanketed the platform. Torn ads for events dated back to 1972. The clocks didn't move. It felt like this place had been frozen in time. I took a few steps forward, heart pounding. Every footfall echoed endlessly. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment I thought I saw a shadow dart down the hallway. I moved closer. The corridor split. To the right, rubble blocked the way. To the left, a heavy metal door, slightly ajar. I hesitated, but that sick curiosity drove me on. Beyond the door, a narrow tunnel led into darkness. The air was damp and reeked of rusted metal, scorched wiring, and something stagnant. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The walls were covered in graffiti, symbols I couldn't make sense of. I kept going. Gradually, the faint sounds of the subway faded away. Nothing remained, just my breathing, and a distant hum, like something electric buzzed deeper ahead. Then I felt it again, that prickling on the back of my neck, that undeniable sense of being watched. I stopped, spun around. No one, or so I thought. When I looked back toward the tunnel, a tall, shadowy figure was gliding slowly at the far end. I couldn't move. That hooded silhouette stood still, just watching me. It didn't walk, didn't speak. It was simply there, as if it had known I would show up, as if it had been waiting for me. I took a step back, but something deep inside told me I couldn't turn around. Not yet. There was something more behind all of this. Running now would mean giving in and being marked forever. Suddenly, the figure vanished, just like that, gone into thin air. I used that moment to move faster, pushed forward by a feeling that wasn't entirely rational. I rushed down a narrower corridor, turned right, and spotted a rusted metal door left slightly ajar. Behind it, a faint bluish glow lit up the darkness. I carefully pushed it open and stepped inside. It looked like an abandoned maintenance room, though nothing about it felt official. No logos, no signage, just a strange pile of objects that didn't seem to belong to the same time or place. To the side, stacked cardboard boxes. In the center, a metal table covered with documents, notebooks, and what looked like fake IDs from multiple countries. There were passports, ID cards, sheets with personal information. And most disturbing of all, a photograph of me. Yes, me. Along with a photocopy of what looked like my old state ID, my full address in the Elmwood district, and a handwritten note in red ink that read, Marcus Sullivan, marked for 317. It felt like the air was sucked out of my lungs. I clutched my chest, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Why was my information in this room? Who had taken that picture? And why did that name keep showing up? Then I heard it. Voices. Approaching. I quickly turned off my phone's flashlight and crouched behind a stack of boxes. My heart pounded so loud, I was sure they could hear it. 3 men entered the room. They spoke in hushed tones, one of them with a northern drawl, mixing English with unfamiliar words. "Everything ready for tonight?" asked one. "Almost. Just need to finalize the delivery setup," said another. "And the chosen one?" asked the third. "He's on his way. We've got him locked in." I held my breath. They were talking about me. My hands were slick with sweat. Every muscle trembled, but I couldn't move. I knew that even the faintest noise would give me away. One of them walked directly toward the boxes where I was hiding. His steps were slow, deliberate, like he already knew someone was there. I tilted my head just enough to get a glimpse of him. And then he looked me straight in the eyes. For a second that stretched into eternity, we locked eyes. Me, crouched in the dark, dripping with cold sweat. Him, standing above, blank expression, but with a terrifying certainty in his stare. He knew I was there. There was no time to think. I leapt up, shoved a box at him and ran. I crashed through the room, knocking over a table and sending papers flying. Behind me I heard shouting, "Stop him! He can't get away! He's already been marked!" The tunnel stretched out ahead like a never-ending serpent. I ran without looking back, even though I felt their footsteps closing in. My phone's flashlight barely lit the path a few feet ahead, just enough to avoid crashing, but not enough to see an exit. The air grew thick and hot. The concrete corridors felt like they were closing in around me. Every turn, every corner was a leap of faith, but I couldn't stop. Something inside me whispered that if they caught me, I'd never get out. I turned left, then right, no clue where I was going. The markings on the walls were faded, ancient, some written in a language I didn't recognize. Their voices drew closer. I could hear curses, commands, and a sharp scraping sound, like blades dragging along the floor. My legs burned, my lungs were on fire. I tripped over a cable, fell to my knees, but scrambled back up. There was no choice, I had to escape. That's when I saw it, an access hatch in the ceiling. A square grate, rusty but reachable. Next to it, an old filing cabinet stood against the wall. I pulled it over, climbed on top, and slammed my shoulder into the hatch. On the third try, it gave way. Voices echoed from the hallway behind me. "There he is. He's going up." I launched myself into the hatch and slammed it shut behind me with a loud bang. Now I was in some kind of service space, filled with wires, ventilation shafts, flickering lights. The heat was unbearable. The smell, a sick mix of rust, mildew, and scorched circuits. Below me, footsteps rang out, the voices multiplied. "He can't have gone far. Check the ducts." I crawled forward, bumping into metal beams, scraping against pipes. I had no idea where I was heading. The only goal was to keep moving. After what felt like forever, I saw a brighter light in the distance. I crawled toward it. Another grate, this one on the floor. I forced it open and dropped straight onto some maintenance tracks. It was a part of the underground system I didn't recognize, but it was a way out. I ran without thinking, without stopping, because by now I wasn't just running for my life, I was running to keep my mind intact. I finally emerged from the underground through a rusty maintenance door that led to a forgotten alley in the industrial district. I had no idea what part of Omaha I was in, but I didn't care. I walked, ran, stumbled, until I found a street with taxicabs. One pulled over. The driver looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. "You all right, son? Just get me out of here, please." I didn't say another word. I got home just as dawn began to break. I locked every door, turned off my phone, and crawled under the bed like a scared kid. I felt dirty, not on the outside, but inside, like something had entered me that night. I didn't go to work. I didn't leave the apartment for days. I barely ate, and whenever I tried to rest, something stopped me. Because ever since that night, my internal clock reset. I wake up every single morning at the same exact time, 3:17 a.m. Doesn't matter if I fall asleep at 9 or 1. Doesn't matter if I set alarms, play music, or use white noise. At that precise moment, my eyes snap open, my heart races, and I feel that presence. Once, I worked up the courage to peek out the window at that hour. Standing under a flickering street lamp on the corner was him, just standing, still, looking up at my window. I didn't react. I just backed away, closed the curtains and prayed, even though I've never been a believer. Another night, I got a call from a blocked number. I answered. No one spoke. I only heard shallow breathing, followed by a low murmur that turned into an old chant, like a ritual. I hung up, turned off the phone. It didn't ring again, at least not that night. I've tried to move on. But how do you move on when you don't know if you've already crossed into something else? Sometimes I wonder if I ever really escaped, that my body left those tunnels, but my mind, or something deeper inside me, stayed behind. I started writing this, not to convince you, but to warn someone, because this might sound insane, made up, like the ramblings of someone who no longer knows what's real. But if you ever step into a subway car and notice it's emptier than usual, if you see someone too still, watching you with unblinking eyes, if you hear your name in a place where no one should know it, please listen to me. Don't stay. Don't wait for the clock to hit 3:17, because once they choose you, there's no turning back.